Top 10 adventurers who never returned home. You will never guess what the number one adventurer is. Like and subscribe for weekly videos. In the comments below, list one topic you think should be in a top 10 video and comment if you subscribe to this channel. 10. Ferdinand Magellan 1480 to 1521, killed by natives. Ferdinand Magellan was a Portuguese explorer. He was born in Sabrosa, in northern Portugal, but later obtained Spanish nationality in order to serve King Charles I of Spain, in search of a westward route to the Spice Islands. Magellan's expedition of 1519 to 1522 became the first expedition to sail from the Atlantic Ocean into the Pacific Ocean, and the first to cross the Pacific. It also completed the first circumnavigation of the Earth, although Magellan himself did not complete the entire voyage. At the request of the Raja of Cebu, Magellan traveled to the Mactan with the command to kill, but the intention to convert, the Raja's enemy, Datu Lapu-Lapu. Upon arrival, a battle ensued and Magellan was hit by a bamboo spear and later surrounded and finished off with other weapons. 9. Lope de Aguirre ca. 1510 to 1561, killed in rebellion. Lope de Aguirre was a Basque Spanish conquistador in South America. Nicknamed El Loco, the Madman, Aguirre is most popular for his last undertaking, down the Amazon stream, looking for the legendary El Dorado. Toward the start, he was a minor authority of the campaign, yet he mutinied and dealt with it, and afterward opposed, and challenged, the Spanish ruler, Philip II. Aguirre was crushed and killed. From that point on, he was viewed as a worldview of savagery and unfairness in Pilgrim Spanish America, and has become a wannabe in writing, film and other arts. In 1561, he held on to Isla Margarita and mercilessly smothered any resistance to his rule, executing numerous blameless individuals. At the point when he crossed to the terrain trying to take Panama, his open defiance to the Spanish crown reached a conclusion. He was encircled at Barquisimeto, Venezuela, where he killed his own girl, Elvira, in light of the fact that somebody that I cherished so much ought not come to be slept with by uncivilized individuals. He additionally murdered a few supporters who expected to catch him. He was in the end caught and murdered. Aguirre's body was sliced into quarters and shipped off different urban areas across Venezuela. The Amazon Stream Odyssey of Aguirre is the subject of an impressive film by Werner Herzog, Aguirre, Wrath of God, with Klaus Kinski as the eponymous conquistador. 8. Captain James Cook 1728 to 1779, killed by natives. Chief James Cook was a British voyager, pilot and mapmaker, eventually ascending to the position of captain in the Royal Navy. Cook made definite guides of Newfoundland before making 3 journeys to the Pacific Ocean, during which he accomplished the main European contact with the eastern coastline of Australia and the Hawaiian Islands, just as the primary recorded circumnavigation of New Zealand. Cook diagrammed numerous territories and recorded a few islands and coastlines on European guides unexpectedly. His accomplishments can be credited to a blend of seamanship, predominant looking over and cartographic abilities and mental fortitude in investigating perilous areas to affirm the facts. On the 14th of February, at Kealakekua Bay in Hawaii, a few Hawaiians took one of Cook's little pontoons. Typically, as robberies were very normal in Tahiti and different islands, Cook would have taken prisoners until the taken articles were returned. Undoubtedly, he endeavored to abduct the king of Hawaii, Kalaniʻōpuʻu. The Hawaiians forestalled this, and Cook's men needed to withdraw to the seashore. Hawaiian custom says that he was slaughtered by a boss named Kalaniʻōpuʻu. The regard in which he was all things considered held by the Hawaiians brought about his body being held by their bosses and older folks. Following the act of the time, Cook's body went through funerary customs like those saved for the bosses and most elevated older folks of the general public. You may likewise be intrigued to realize that it was the Earl of Sandwich, who gave his name to the well-known bite, that paid for quite a bit of Cook's adventuring, and is the explanation that Cook at first named Hawaii the Sandwich Islands. 7. David Douglas 1799 to 1834, killed in animal trap. Douglas, the child of an unassuming Scottish stonemason, was apprenticed as a cultivator's kid. He proceeded to acquire a post at the Glasgow Botanic Gardens, where he improved his training by intentionally going to plant science addresses. This attracted the consideration of some driving figures the green world who were searching for an incredible, down-to-earth yet clever youngster, with the activity to investigate North America for potential nursery plants. Douglas set out on a progression of investigations that made him celebrated and brought about his name being given logically and prominently to the Douglas fir. On the last excursion of his somewhat short vocation, Douglas ventured out to Hawaii. While he was investigating a pit trap at one of the wild relatives of the cows brought to the island by Captain Vancouver, he got excessively near the edge, which collapsed, and he was stomped on and gutted to death by the infuriated monster. 6. Dr. David Livingstone (1813–1873) died of disease for Africa. It appeared to be a sure wagered somebody notable should without a doubt have been lethally savaged by lions. Nonetheless, the sensational executing of the game trackers in the railroad carriage by the craftiness pair of Tsavo lions has all the earmarks of being fantasy effectively appropriated by the entertainment world. Livingstone, then again, absolutely was assaulted and destroyed by a lion, yet spared from death by the courageous mediation of an African worker. Notwithstanding, the notable minister, voyager and pilgrim pioneer, particularly well known for his epic gathering with Stanley, never got back to his local Scotland and family, in any case. He kicked the bucket of jungle fever and interior draining brought about by diarrhea. He took his last breaths while stooping in supplication at his bedside. Odd truth. A specific arrangement of African succulents is called Livingstone daisies. Nothing to do with the great specialist, in any case. It's simply that the adjusted, enigmatic plant bodies look precisely like endured desert stones. I assume. 5. Robert Falcon Scott (1868–1912). Hypothermia Commander Robert Falcon Scott was a Royal Navy official and pioneer who drove two undertakings to the Antarctic locales, the Discovery Expedition, 1901–04, and the disastrous Terra Nova Expedition, 1910–13. During this subsequent endeavor, Scott drove a gathering of 5 which arrived at the South Pole on 17th January, 1912, just to find that they had been gone before by Roald Amundson's Thing 3, Norwegian undertaking. On their return excursion, Scott and his 4 confidants all died from a mix of depletion, starvation and outrageous virus. Following the updates on his passing, Scott turned into a notable British saint, a status kept up for over 50 years and reflected by the numerous perpetual remembrances raised the country over. In the end, many years of the 20th century, the legend was re-evaluated as consideration zeroed in on the reasons for the catastrophe that finished his and his companions' lives, and the degree of Scott's own culpability. 4. Sir Ernest Henry Shackleton (1874–1922) died of illness. Shackleton's initial campaigns incorporated the main excursion toward the southern attractive pole, just as graphing a course through the Transantarctic Mountains that was later utilized by Scott on his toward the south trip. Tragically, this endeavor was put to a stop when Shackleton's boat, unexpectedly called the HMS Endurance, was caught in pack ice and in the long run squashed, abandoning the group on the close-by Elephant Island. For very nearly a year the group made do on seal, penguin and whale meat. They utilized seal lard to make oil for flames to remain warm, and in one mainstream photograph were seen playing soccer on the ice rack. Shackleton understood that without assistance they couldn't live like this eternity, and chose to utilize the enduring longboats to make a tricky journey to a whaling station on the far-off South Georgia Island, 800 miles toward the north. With little food and water, and no clinical supplies, Shackleton and 5 of his men overcame the ice-stuffed seas. After weeks, they arrived on South Georgia Island, starving and experiencing drying out. Sadly, they'd arrived on the uninhabited southern coast, so for the last difficult leg of the excursion Shackleton and his men needed to cross a mountain range that nobody had recently crossed. He arrived at the whaling station and began to take a shot at a campaign to save his group. After nearly 12 months and a half marooned in the Antarctic, Shackleton's group was at last met with help transports that took them home. Regardless of the reality, his trans-Antarctic undertaking was, at last, a disappointment as a journey. It was a triumph for the steadiness of the human soul. 3-year-old Amundsen 1872–1928, lost oversea. Amundsen is most likely a standout amongst other known polar travelers ever, and has the extraordinary qualification of being the primary man to arrive at both the North and South Pole in the course of his life. Contrasted and Scott's undertaking, which was filled with difficulties and issues, Amundsen's South Polar endeavour was genuinely ordinary. His utilization of healthy sled canines rather than Scott's more delicate Norwegian horses, just as cautious utilization of his assets, were the explanation behind his smooth excursion. However, Amundsen's campaign was still very difficult. He and his men traveled through many miles of absolutely unexplored uneven areas and planted their banner on the South Pole on December 14, 1911, naming the region Polheim, or place that is known for the pole. Not disdaining his polar opponent, Amundsen left a note for Scott reading, "Dear Captain Scott, as you likely are the first to arrive at this zone after us, I will ask you to benevolently advance this letter to King Haakon VII. On the off chance that you can utilize any of the articles left in the tent, kindly don't spare a moment to do as such. With kind respects, I wish you a safe return. Yours really, Roald Amundsen." Amundsen just led that one campaign to the shaft, however spent an incredible remainder investigating until he vanished close to Bear Island while aiding a salvage mission. To Amelia Mary Earhart 1897–1937, lost oversea. Amelia Earhart was a prominent American aeronautics pioneer and creator. Earhart was the main lady to get the US-recognized Flying Cross, granted for turning into the principal aviatrix to fly solo over the Atlantic Ocean. She set numerous different precedents, composed top-rated books about her flying encounters, and was instrumental in the arrangement of the 99s, an association for female pilots. During an endeavor to make a circumnavigational trip of the globe in 1937, in a Purdue-subsidized Lockheed Model 10 Electra, Earhart vanished over the focal Pacific Ocean close to Howland Island. Interest with her life, vocation and vanishing proceeds to this day. The similarly celebrated British aviatrix Amy Johnson lost her life while shipping battle planes during the Second World War. A similar clash saw the ascent to notoriety and endurance of, without a doubt, the most trying aviatrix ever, Hitler's dear, Hanna Reich, whom he would not permit to join a functioning contender group, and who flew all the most progressive and perilous German exploratory stream and rocket airplane. 1. Donald Crowhurst 1932–1969, lost at sea albeit driven by neurotic pomposity. Crowhurst was additionally a man of outstanding fortitude and insight who at last succumbed to his very own colossal trickiness imagining. This came about because of his need to win around the world courageous, constant cruising race. His story has all the components of Greek misfortune. Crowhurst, a nautical technocrat, had a sailboat assembled which he was sure would handily beat his rivals. He bet, and sank the vast majority of his capital into the endeavor. Because of a progression of postponements and incidents, the vessel was hardly completed on schedule, and a lot of his needs and gear for the long and requesting journey were just unloaded on deck for him to figure out and stow while in progress. Simply by this implies did he move away at the restriction of the cut-off time. More awful was to follow. The untested vessel before long turned out to be severely holed. Incapable to finish the journey, however urgent for the prize cash because of a bombed undertaking, Crowhurst imagined the arrangement of making up his log details to look as though he had circumnavigated the globe constant, a noteworthy numerical accomplishment all by itself. He likewise landed illicitly in North Argentina to fix up the frame. As a long way from Britain as he ever got. Close to the end, his lone residual opponent was Robin Knox Johnston. He needed to come next, however Knox Johnston was so moderate Crowhurst proved unable to genuinely linger behind, given the velocities he had been asserting. In the end the pressure broke him. His last log passages got disturbed, and it is expected he essentially evaded the sailboat, which was discovered floating, and ended it all by suffocating, a male Ophelia. Knox Johnston bravely gave his prize cash to the appeal fund for Crowhurst's family.